What is good, YouTube? Warstu here with a video on Godzilla X Kong 3, aka Godzilla X Kong The New Empire Untitled Sequel. So, they have officially started shooting this movie now, which is fantastic news that has been confirmed by The Last of Us 2 star, who literally on the press tour in Australia for The Last of Us Season 2 said, yo, I'm shooting the movie, which is cool, which commenced shooting in the Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia, back in April. So, in today's video, we're going to talk about Godzilla X Kong 3, which is a title I'm working with at the moment. Also, if you are new around here, make sure to subscribe to never miss any of the Marvel, DC, Kaiju, MonsterVerse, pop culture-based content that I try to deliver on a daily basis. Go subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on. That would be much appreciated. Also, I do have a channel on Instagram, @Warstu, if you want to see the beautiful face behind the beautiful voice, where I can post set leaks and other stuff like that, which I have done previously for Godzilla X Kong, also for Godzilla vs. Kong, also for a bunch of other Marvel DC properties, because putting copyrighted content on YouTube is not easy. And also follow us on Twitter, WarstuG. Right, let's get into it. So, as we know, Callahan penned the movie, meaning screenplay. Okay, David Callahan. I'm not really the biggest fan of his work. He did Wonder Woman 1984. He's done a bunch of other stuff, but he was involved with Spideyverse projects, so he could be decent. And also, the director is fairly well not known, which is quite worrying, but then again, it could potentially be a good thing. So, Grant Sputor, if I'm pronouncing his last name right, is directing this movie following Adam Wingard exiting the project. We don't know why. Maybe it's because he's directing that A24 project. But it's interesting to go in a different direction after the highly successful Godzilla vs. Kong and then Godzilla X Kong The New Empire. So a lot is known about this movie without a lot being known, which I get it. It sounds like I've just repeated myself twice. But that's not what's actually happening here. So, as we know for Godzilla X Kong The New Empire, instead of bringing through the plethora of Toho character kaijus that they could have done, they decided to bring in essentially a new kaiju, which, I mean, technically Shimo is a kaiju, but it's kind of a made-up kaiju, which, as much as we want Destroyer, Space Godzilla, Biolante, Gargant, is Legendary Pictures really going to pay Toho to bring more Toho characters in? Most likely not, but they do have an interesting scenario here, as they have basically set up a MonsterVerse Civil War type scenario here, because as we know, I've been covering this stuff for years, whether it be Marvel, DC, MonsterVerse, video games, there's always some truth to leaks. So sure, we will go over some leaks, and yes, I'm not always right, but you've got to take everything with a pinch of salt. So we know also, based on Monarch Legacy of the Monsters, Hollow-Earth is always going to be a centric point to every movie, and it's always going to be a centric point to the side stories, which are the sequential TV shows. The Apple TV show, Monarch Legacy of Monsters, again, did focus on Hollow-Earth for a decent part, is the conflict of humans wanting control over Hollow-Earth, which essentially is what the leaks mentioned, that a government agency is going to try and take over Hollow-Earth, which again would make sense. And they're going to create their own mechanized titans to essentially try to attack Godzilla and take out Godzilla and Kong. But the issue we have here is they're going to have to be very technologically advanced, because Shimo is so freaking OP. And if they went with the original designs for Shimo would have been a lot taller. And also Scar King would have been a lot taller. But it makes sense why Scar King wasn't crazy tall, because when Kong and Scar King were fighting, it just would have looked ridiculous. So we'll go over a portion of the plot leaks, because we kind of have to, in order to set the tone of where I'm going with this, everything that we know. So the movie seems to have a much more serious, somber, heavy tone with serious real-world implications And it seems like also with the novel is the world leaders are getting annoyed with the Titans and with Hollow Earth, and I understand. So essentially, it's always going to be the case where Godzilla is always going to be the greatest threat to humanity itself. So it seems like there's going to be some kind of new government agency assembled to dismantle Monarch and try to overtake the operations in Hollow Earth with the ultimate goal of destroying it and effectively sealing the monsters away so the monsters can't destroy Earth. Don't get me wrong, they destroyed a city in Godzilla vs. Kong. They destroyed another city in Brazil, in Rio, in Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire. So it does make sense logically why the world's governments would want to do this. They want to essentially destroy Hollow Earth. Now, the antagonist this time around, it's very interesting what the reports say. Like I say, reports, I don't know if they're real. It's too early, even though they've started shooting, it's too early. It's trying to say an enraged Godzilla is going to be the main villain, and the government agency responsible for upsetting the balance of human nature. So it does say that Shimo returns for a cameo role, but is subdued by the military's new anti-Titan weaponry. Now, is this anti-Titan weaponry a new Titan like Argan or like Warstu or like a space Shimo? Yeah, because if they made their own version of Godzilla in the legendary MonsterVerse lore, if you want to call it that, like, I don't actually think we're going to get Space Godzilla. I just don't think they can afford it. I also don't think Toho will want to do it. But they could just make their own Space Shimo if they really want to do that. So Shimo gets subdued with a new anti-Titan weaponry, which a lot of people seem to think it will introduce some variation of Mecha Godzilla, Mecha Ghidorah, Mecha Warstu. Could be. And there's also rumors that there's going to be lots of different Titans in this movie, the Skrull Corers, and this is going to upset the Great Apes, which essentially being led by Kong in Hollow Earth, who sees the humans as tyrants and no different to Scar King, who essentially abused them for years. Kong is especially going to be enraged by these Skrull Crawlers, makes sense. And it goes on to list lots of cameos from Titans, battling the military before ultimately being destroyed and subdued. So it makes it seem like there is a civil war scenario here. Now, obviously, I assume Suku would return to break some, comedic tone from the more serious tone, because as much as we all want a real serious tone like we got in the original Godzilla movie, there's got to be some humor, sprinkled throughout the movie. So Kong's arc will be similar to Godzilla's arc in the previous movie, allegedly. So where they diverge is Kong struggles with his choice to coexist with humanity, where Godzilla just wants to go freaking insane and wants to go to war with him. So allegedly Kong has a battle with a major city. Again, Godzilla is surprised attacked by the military while sleeping in the Roman Colosseum and battles through the military and their zombie titans. I mean, a lot of people discontinued this, but it's like I say, most of the leaks I go over, there's always some truth to it. Godzilla has settled in his new form. It's stated his dorsal plates have straightened out and hardened, and his bulk has returned. So he's gone back to being Mammoth Godzilla. And we all know this is for toy sales. Mothra allegedly returns briefly with Godzilla and Kong as she chooses not to forsake humanity. And it is through her actions and Monarch Gia's intervention that she convinces Kong and later Godzilla that humanity is worth saving. But I don't actually know if I believe this, because this just sounds too similar to the plot of every single MonsterVerse movie in the last 2 movies that we've had, except for this time, the government really are getting involved. So ending seems that humanity will work towards cleaning up Earth so they can coexist, and Titans, like in ancient times, once more. It's interesting. But I don't know if I believe this one. But the main plot here is the government will be involved in trying to control and take out Hollow Earth, as they've basically had enough. So some variants of a civil war. Now, I get it, people. I mean, everyone wants Destroyer, everyone wants Space Godzilla, everyone wants Gargan, everyone wants Biolatone. There's a lot of characters that people want, but like Toho basically is in control of which Titans they can use, and they'd have to pay money to use different Titans. So we know that shooting has already started, and they'll be shooting for some time. We know they're going to be shooting also in America, Utah, and it's going to be pretty insane. But I don't think, just like when they were shooting Godzilla versus Kong, you're going to get, because it's all green screen and, you know, the Titans are animated, you're not really going to get any inkling of who this new Titan is going to be. So it would make sense for them to create a new Titan rather than pay Toho to license out, do something similar to what they did with Shimo. Shimo is essentially another Godzilla, if you like, if you want to say that. As much as I want Space Godzilla or Destroyer, that is an Avengers Endgame kind of MonsterVerse Endgame level threat. So they could just make their own Space Godzilla and have it Shimo SpaceZilla or something like that. So I just wanted to talk about the MonsterVerse because there hasn't been much to talk about at the moment when it comes to MonsterVerse content. So that's everything that we know so far. And does a lot of this plot sound made up? I don't really think it does. Like the return of Shimo, return of a bunch of Titans that aren't dead, return of Mothra. I mean, it all does make sense. Allegedly says that Mothra makes a brief appearance. We can either have Radan return, a climactic, hopeful ending. I mean, it's always going to be the case because the Titans have to kind of coexist with the humans unless we get a really dark plot where the Titans take out all the humans, but they won't do that. Godzilla becoming the main antagonistic, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's because, but that wouldn't be the case because obviously if the humans have their own Titan made, you know, their Space Shimo to take out Godzilla, it really wouldn't, I mean, from the human side, it would make Godzilla seem like the main villain. But realistically, they've already made their own Mecha Godzilla, so will they do this? I don't know, but it's interesting either way. So like always, guys, I would try and make more Godzilla X Kong 3 content, but it is a little bit harder. And I know Dan Stevens and other actors have been hinted at space and doing the emojis. So that's why I think Shimo SpaceZilla would be the most obvious choice. I'm always going to be standing on that fence for Space Godzilla appearing. And I mean, that would imply they go cosmic, but I mean, a Shimo SpaceZilla could be man half made. And I mean, they do kind of need to go cosmic to a sense in a roundabout way, I guess, if you want to say that. But as we know, they're shooting this movie. It doesn't come out till 2027. Yeah, 2027. They're shooting Avengers Doomsday this year. It comes out next year. I get it. With MonsterVerse movies, there is a hell of a lot of post-production they have to do. But making us wait 2 years, it's an absolute travesty. But at least we have season 2 of Monarch Legacy of the Monsters coming soon. Well, not soon, but sooner than Godzilla X Kong 3, you would assume. Sorry, there isn't much new information, but I didn't really say there was in the title. We're just going over everything that we know thus far. They've pretty much cast everyone already because they're already shooting. I think the cast is pretty cool. Interesting, there's only really one returning character, which is Dan Stevens' Trapper, and it's pretty much a whole new cast. But that tends to happen because there really isn't any established characters in this MonsterVerse from a human side, in my opinion. So likewise, guys, check us out on Instagram. That'd be pretty cool. Check us out on Twitter. What's 2G, and I'll catch you in another video, guys, very soon. Catch ya later.